we up in Wonsan, North. We had a while getting in there because the car was loaded with mines. We couldn't come in until they cleared the mines. So we landed in Wonsan, Korea, and we proceeded to go north. And eventually, we went all the way up to a village called Udamni. That was in North Korea, very close to the Yellow River, in an area called the Chosin Reservoir. And it was our job to keep the road open because we heard they had some tanks through, and we were at the hill 1403, house on top of the hill. And time went on. It was the 27th of November, which happened to be 9:45 at night. The whole Chinese army came down on the mountains. They were waiting for us. And we really got caught up there. First night, we needed somebody to help back to we went up the mountain. There was no help coming tonight. There's nothing about all the place. Good. We had to put it up there. We set up a stream for our rear and set up in the field on the roadblock. About 25 below there. Water right here. Line. Real hard. My line's he come down for me. And I told Charlie, I said, you better get back up where your positions are. We're just going to have to sit this thing out and fight our way out. And, Charlie was quite religious, and he kept telling me, you know, you got to learn how to pray. I said, I don't need that tonight. I said, you just get back up there where you belong. And he just smiled and he left. He went back up to his position. And they really come down during the night. They had the drums and the bugles and whistles and horns and small arms, and they would wear packets of demolitions around their waist, and then when they got into our positions, they would pull the primer cord and blow themselves up as well as anybody near them. Now, as time went on, we held our positions there, and we got a message. We still had our landline open yet, and we got a call from headquarters in our rear, and they wanted to know what our situation was. And I said, well, we're still here, we still got the village, but there's only 6 of us left. There was 96 of us on that roadblock. When dawn came, there was just 6 of us left. And, having a lot of things to think about in a situation like that here, with just the 6 of us there. We had nothing but death and destruction all around us. There was Chinese as well as Marines. My squad leader, Bobby Devans, he got killed that night, and it was on my birthday, so it's something I never forget. And, he had been all right, but when he told us to change positions, he made one more check and made sure everybody come back, and instead of diving into his position, you know, get out of the line of fire, he stood up to make sure everybody was cleared. And he took a direct round with a burp gun in the back of his head. He died in my arms that night. We tried to hold his head together. He was dead, but we didn't realize. We were just trying to hang on to him. So he died on my birthday. So that was something I could never forget. And then.
So you're saying that there were 96 of you people and only 6 left?
Yeah, 6 of us in the morning, right?
And how did you, did foxhole, how did you?
There was no foxholes. It was snow and up frozen ground. It was.
And you were in water?
The 27th of November, it got down to 42 below zero. So the so-called foxhole was just laying in the snowbank.
Right, that would be it.
That was it.
Did you have special clothing you wore while you?
At first we didn't. We had, I have pictures taken that I have home that was taken by an Associated Press photographer. And we still had the clothes on that we landed with in Inchon, our dungaree jackets, and our regular Marine Corps used to wear the leggings in those days. We had the leggings on and a combat boot. We didn't have any gloves, no Parkers, no nothing. That was on the 27th. And as things settled down after that, we started to get cold weather here. The 1st Marine Regiment, which was holding the rear guard, they had the cold weather equipment. Anything that came up, they got it first. Eventually, we did get our cold weather gear. That night, we just had regular dungaree jackets on and regular clothing, and we had a lot of frostbite. One of our other section leaders, a fellow by the name of Rip McVeigh, both of his feet froze, and eventually he lost them both in the cold weather. And, I managed to handle the cold weather because I was brought up upstate New York. And I always remember I sent a letter home to my dad saying, I'm glad I was brought up in the country because I knew how to handle the cold weather. But nobody could handle it, but you didn't let it get to it. You know, you kept moving. I used to tell the guys, don't stop, just keep moving your feet, move your hands. And, well, anyways, things settled down on the next morning there. We looked around what we had left. I told the guys, I said, we've got to pull out of here. And they said, well, we're never going to get out. And I said, well, we'll get out, don't worry, we're going to make it. And as dawn came, I got to thinking about my buddy Charlie always witnessing to me about how to get right with the Lord, and now's the time. And I never paid attention to it. But that morning, as I looked around, all I just said, you know, I knew the Lord was up there somewhere. And I just said, you know, I just don't want to die here. I just want to see the sun come up one more time. I said, just give me another day. And that's the way I prayed. And of course, we all had these servicemen testaments we carried with us. And I never used mine. I took it out. Just as daylight came, we was waiting for another counterattack. I just opened it up, and I didn't know what it was. I opened it up. It was the 23rd Psalm. And I started reading it, and I got to thinking, I said, what are you reading this for? You don't read this stuff. This is a lot of garbage. Get it out of your mind. But I couldn't get it out. I finally read the 23rd Psalm. And the 4th verse really stayed with me. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And I kept hearing that and kept reading it, and I kept trying to throw it aside because it was not my lifestyle. But that night, I just asked God to give me another day. Just let me see that sun come up one more time. And with that, the dawn broke, and the enemy had, why they pulled back, I'll never know, because they had us. All they had to do was come in and get us. I told the guys that take some of the wounded guys we got. We had 3 badly wounded men. And we had my squad leader, Bob, there, and I said, we got to put him in a sleeping bag. Let's get him on the side of the road so we knew the graves registration would be coming up to pick up the dead. And we left Bobby on the side of that road there. I told him we had to go, and I knew that Fox Company, 7th Marines, was up in the hills behind us. So we kind of made a sled out of our sleeping bags and took our wounded we worked up our way through this valley. It took us 4.5 hours to go across this valley floor up into the mountains on the Tacoma Pass, where we knew Fox Company was. And when we got up to Fox Company, they challenged us. We told them who we were, and they gave us back the word that there's nobody left on that roadblock. They were annihilated. I said, no, there's 6 of us, and we're coming in. So we tied in with them, only to find out that they had been completely surrounded. And they had the same kind of situation we had. They had bodies all over the place up on that mountaintop. So we tied in with Foxconn, and we spent the next, better part of 2 weeks with Fox Company holding off the Chinese. They never fought during the day. They would never come out in the daytime. They always attacked us at night. And, it got to the point where you were running out of ammunition. There was no chow left. There was no food left. There's nothing coming in. And you just laid up on that ridge and just waited for the next counterattack. And as it came in, it got to the point where we were in hand-to-hand combat. It was either kill or be killed. You'd use your entrenching tools, your 782 gear with your canteens hanging on it. We were just swinging them. We had no ammo, and as the Chinks came in, we took them out one at a time. And it was what we were trained for. I mean, that was our job. But we managed to stay up there for about 2 more weeks, and then finally we started getting some air. I think
air support.
C-47s.
Air support.
Air support. And of course it was snowing all the time and cloud cover. And we had no air cover. And finally, we laid up on that hill there. And one morning, as dawn came in, one of the guys yelled, "Look, there's a star. There's a star. That means air cover." And with that, they came in and straked the mountaintop there, and then they dropped ammo to us and food supplies. And one of the funniest things of the whole operation, they were parachutes marked for medical supplies and food and ammo. And some of the first cases we opened up were full of Tootsie Rolls. Somebody made a mistake back in Japan and shipped us tons and tons of Tootsie Rolls. And that was a real blessing in disguise, because that was the only chow we had. And we used to take those Tootsie Rolls, and they were froze solid, put them in your mouth and try to suck on them. But that was the only energy we had. We lived on Tootsie Rolls. I don't know how that ever happened, but there was a reason for it, and that's how we survived that mountaintop. And as time went on, we made the breakout, and we started heading back to the rear because we got orders to pull back. We got down to a place called Kodo Ri, and we found out the bridge was blown out, and that was the only way out of there. There was cliffs that go down 2,000 to 3,000 feet to the bottom there, and there was no bridge, so we had to hold off there until the engineers and Air Force and Army engineers, besides the Marine engineers, come up with an idea to put a bridge across there. And they parachuted these bridges in. The first ones missed their mark, and they just fell down the side of the mountain. And the second time they tried it, they put these, I guess they were made out of aluminum, but they were bridgeways, and they landed right directly on that opening there. And that's how the column came out. And when we came down, we took all our dead, our wounded, and everybody that could walk would follow the convoy off to the sides and keep the Chinese off. And then we got just outside of Kodo Ri, and there was one of our Marine ambulances there. We used to call them cracker boxes. They had the big red cross on them. And there was 14 wounded in that ambulance, and the Chinks attacked it during the night. And the Jeep ambulance rolled over, and everybody in that ambulance that night was killed. There was 92 bullet holes, all done from the inside out. The chinks that get into this ambulance and killed everybody. Well, we found it there, and we had a fellow by the name of Chaplain John Graven. He was our battalion chaplain. You never had to look for him. He was always with the troops. He wasn't one of these rear echelon people. Chaplain Craven was right there, and he says, boys, we've got to get this ambulance back on the road. There's about 6 or 8 of us there, and he says, we're going to tip it over and get it back on its wheels. In the meantime, we're being shelled with mortar fire, machine gun fire, and whatnot. And just about the time we went to roll it back over, Chaplain Craven said, just a minute. And he sat and knelt down and he said a prayer. And then we all got together. We rolled it back on its wheels. And Chaplain Craven got behind the seat and drove the ambulance back down to the next aid station. And his windshield was all shot out. But he took some more wounded with him as he went down. And that was an experience I never forgot. And then we worked our way down through to Hagaroo, and then the next stop was going to be Hung Nam, the harbor, and the ships would be waiting for us. And it was on a stretch of time there between Hagaroo and the harbor that the chinks were really coming down off the hills. And we had Marines on the side of the hills, and we had Marines walking with the trucks with the dead and the wounded. And we had gotten word that the chinks had broken through a line. Part of the Army regiment that was up there with 7th Regiment was holding the road on the south end, and the chinks had cut them off, so now we were still cut off again. And they told us to, well, they didn't tell us, they just said, you, and you're going back up there to help. So they told us that as we go by this one Jeep to pick up some more ammo and some machine guns, light 30 calibers. And every Marine knows how to use a machine gun, but it's not your regular weapon. And, I got a kid with me there. I didn't even know who he was. He's just somebody that was there. Him and I went up, and we set up on the side of this ridge there, and as the chinks were coming down through the valley, we got the machine gun working. We opened up on it, and then thing jammed, which they did quite often. And I'm laying there behind the sights of that thing, and I'm saying to the kid, do you remember how to clear a jam? He said, I don't know, I never had enough experience with a machine gun. So I had this great sensation laying there trying to figure out how to clear that gun, and I could feel somebody with their boot right on the back of my neck. And in my mind, it was my DI at Paris Island showing me, this is how you do it. And it all came back to me, so I cleared the weapon and we continued to fire. But there was nobody on my back, nobody standing on me, but I knew it and I felt it. This DI back years earlier was telling me how to clear that machine gun. So we finished that operation, and we kept working our way back. We fought from UDMD to the harbor in Hung Nam, 78 miles. And we walked and fought through the mountaintops all the way out. And of course, we brought our dead and wounded out with our trucks, and they would get ambushed every once in a while. And we would keep right on going. And I have a good friend of mine here, Waterville, Bernie Dombrowski. He had gotten wounded, and of course, coming out, I caught up with him, and he had a head wound, and he had his shoulder just about tore out. So I said, Ski, I'm going to get you on a truck and get you out of here. And I flagged down one of the trucks, and they helped him up into the truck, because the dead were laying in the bed there, and some of the wounded. Anybody that could use a weapon was with a weapon on top of all these dead coming out. And went down the road about 2 or 3 miles, and they stopped the truck, and they wanted to know why all these guys are on this truck. And he told them, and he says, you better get them off of there, because you guys that truck is loaded with aviation fuel and ammunition. So Ski had to get off it, and then he walked the rest of the way into Hung Dam. And he was a good friend of mine, and as years went by, he was my best man at my wedding, and I was an usher in his wedding, and we still see each other today. You know, he's had a stroke and he's in a wheelchair, but I go over to see him about once a week, and we stay pretty much close together. But anyway, we finally got on board the ship there in the harbor, and we offloaded there and took off, and as we got into the harbor, it was like 24th or 25th of December when the engineers blew the entire harbor up. We were at sea out on the shoreline. We watched the whole harbor get blown out. Well, when we left there, we took over 100,000 North Korean civilians. They just swarmed onto the ships. Most of them got on the ships before we did. They just wanted to get out of there. And it was on the SS Meredith Victory. I can't recall the captain's name now, but he's part of our group called the Chosin Few. And he brought out all these civilians on this ship. There was bodies all over. There was even a baby born on board the ship that night. So anyway, we got back to what they call the bean patch in Busan. We reorganized the division. They gave us about 2 weeks. They just left us, recuperated. We had a roll call one morning, and we had a fallout in the so-called company street. And before we came down to report, I told them, I says, first squad, second section. I says, there's 6. Well, then there was only 3 of us left, because the 3 other guys got taken to the hospital. So we had 3 guys out of our original section. And then we got some replacements in. And sometime in January, we were told we were going back north again. So we fought our way all the way back, all through South Korea, different operations. Operation River, Operation Killer, Iron Triangle. Then we had one operation we called Operation Yo-Yo, because we were out at sea and we couldn't land, so we were going back and forth, waiting to land, and then we finally landed. And we worked our way back, well back over into North Korea. And it was, chasing the Chinese and the North Koreans. And we had them pretty much on the go. Things were going our way. And then this one time I was assigned to a platoon of tanks to protect their advance. So we would go ahead and check for landmines and pass them on. And as they passed on, all of a sudden there was 5 tanks in the column. The first one got hit by a mortar fire from up in the mountain there. And they hit the last one, so in other words, nobody could go anywhere. They had the 5 tanks blocked in. And it was kind of frustrating that they caught us like that. So they started shelling the tanks, and mortar rounds were falling into our positions. And I remember one was right in the position we were in, and we all went flying through space. And we landed, and can't catch your breath and whatnot. And as I was laying there, I looked up at the top of that mountain there, and I saw the sun shining on the barrel of this, probably a 120 artillery piece. So I ran down to the 2nd and 3rd tank in the column there, and I banged on the hatch, and of course they didn't open it up finally. First I tried using the phone in the back of the tank, but it didn't work. So I climbed up on the tank and I banged on the hatch with my rifle butt. I told him, I says, you got to traverse this turret around to the top of that mountain. And he asked me to give him an azimuth with a compass, and I says, I don't have nothing like that. Just turn that barrel and fire a white phosphorus so I could see where it hit. And well, when he done that, he turned the turret around, and before I could get off it, he fired it, and then I went flying through space and landed on the ground and lost all my teeth. I don't have any teeth. I just had the rest of the stumps taken out here about 2 months ago. But I told them where to fire, and they neutralized that situation. And years later, they gave me the Bronze Star with a Combat B for it, but I didn't think it was that great. It was just more frustration why they caught us like that. But we neutralized the situation. The tanks moved on. And I got sent down to an aid station to get work done. My lip was all split out and it was hanging down like a piece of liver. And they bandaged me up, started sewing it up and everything. One of my buddies come down to see how I was making out, and he told me that they sent up this guy by the name of Atkinson, Sergeant Atkinson, to take over the squad. And I said, Atkinson? He's nothing but a clerk and clerk typist, you know, in the rear. I said, he ain't taking over my squad. So I walked out of that hospital and grabbed the Jeep going back up, and I got back with the guys. But I do remember the corpsman, when he was working on me, he was sitting on my chest, and I still have the t-shirt at home when I wore it. It's got holes in it, it's all full of blood and everything. And I hung on to that, I still have that. And he says, you're gonna be okay. You got your ticket home. When you get home, you go down to VA and check in there, and you're gonna get it made for life. And I said, yeah. Well, that was probably in May, exactly May 30th, Memorial Day is when I got hit that time. And then I left the hospital, came back up with the guys. And then came August, it was my time to come home. I don't ever remember getting on board ship to come home, but that's how we came back home. And we got back to San Diego, and as we came into San Diego Harbor, I saw the USS Princeton, the carrier, and the flag was on the fantail, and I saw that flag, and I said, yeah, we're home. That was my idea of coming home. So then they put me in a hospital in San Diego, and come to find out that a lot of us had worms. We had some kind of infection in the system, worms. And the guys that didn't have it were getting liberty, and those that had the worms were quarantined. We were getting 2 pills a day and water until we passed the worms, and they'd always check your stool, your bowels. And I remember this one guy got cleared, and we were offering money to give us a stool sample so we could get cleared. Of course, the nurses got wise to it, you know. But finally, we straightened out the worm situation, and I came back to the States, and I was back at Camp Lejeune, and I ran into my old gunny sergeant, Sergeant Sawyer, Sergeant Reddy, our master sergeant, and he told me that they had a cruise going out on the med cruise, which would be the second one. I had one earlier on, and I said I wanted to get hooked up with that. So I hooked up with the second med cruise, and we went over to the Mediterranean. We had liberty all over Africa, and Italy, Spain, Portugal, Crete. Where else were we? The Black Sea. We went up to Russia again for the second time. And, we landed in what they call Haifa that time, where the Jews and the Arabs are fighting, and our job is to watch out for our civilians, you know. And I wasn't sure which side I was going to shoot at that time. But anyway, we got our orders, and then they found out that I was a short timer, and I should get back to the States to be discharged. And I came back to the States. Well, they gave us orders for flights to come home, and they gave us our pay records with it. So every time we went down to an airstrip, we would show our pay records, and we could draw pay. And one clerk says, wherever you go, every place you go to get an air, make sure they stamp it, no air transportation. So this started on September 2nd, 1950. Yeah, it was going into 52. And we were all over the Mediterranean, getting bumped off different flights. You know, one flight was loaded with congressmen going back to the States. And they took us off and put them on, so we had to stay behind. And we got bumped about 10 different times. We got to Port Lyote in North Africa, and we got to Morocco. We got bumped over there. And we got a flight to the Azores off the coast of Africa. And we were supposed to fly back to the States, and we got bumped again. And they sent us back to a place in Africa, in Libya, a place called Dour-Surs. That was a B-29 base. And we finally got on a mail carrier, a PBY patrol bomber coming across the Atlantic. And the pilot says, if you look off to the port side, you'll see the Queen Mary. And he dove down over the Queen Mary, and everybody was waving to us, you know. Came out of the... Anyway, we got to Westover Field in Massachusetts. And by this time, it was like the middle of September. We were supposed to be back a long time ago. You know, discharge was coming up. Well, we got to Westover, and they told us that we could catch a mail flight to Cherry Point, North Carolina, which we did. A little two-seater. We flew into Cherry Point, North Carolina, and then we hitchhiked to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And we got to Camp Lejeune, and they looked at our orders, and they said, you guys are all over the hill. And I said, well, we got all our orders and all our things. Anyway, they put us in a brig. Of course, we were late coming in, and finally we got it straightened out. And I spent another 2 months in Camp Lejeune there until my discharge come up. And I was supposed to be discharged on the 1st of October. We never got back there until the 9th of October. So they processed this and get discharged. And I come back home to Jefferson. Boy, that farm looked good. I mean, I said, Dad, I'm staying here. I got out of the Corps. Now I wish I never did get out, but I got out. And stayed on the farm for quite a few years. And then I met my wife, Jenny. She was a girl from New Jersey. I met her in a car accident in Red Hook, New York. I was pocket full of money and I was bumming around. Drove all over the United States, went through Canada, Iowa, Nebraska, and came back home and got up in Red Hook and going down the road on 9G, and this car was coming out of a side road and it never stopped, and I hit it, smashed it. Rolled this car over, busted my car up. My buddy went through the windshield. And everything just exploded in the middle of this road. So I ran up to this car and I see what I could do with them. You know, I was on adrenaline. I was always on the go, go, go. And I started getting these people out of the car. And there was 2 young girls, a mother, and a little boy in the car. I come to find out they were taking the girls up for summer camp, somewhere up in that area. So the ambulance came, took everybody to hospitals, and I got released, my buddy got released. So I called up my good buddy Bernie Dombrowski, that fellow that I put on the truck that time. He was a Ward Lee. I said, Bernie, I'm in trouble. I said, I just smashed my car up. You gotta come down and get me. He said, where are you? I said, Red Hook. He come down and picked me up. He said, what do you want to do? I said, let me go back to your place. I'll figure things out what I'm going to do. So I went back up to Ward Elite. He was living in Lansingburg at that time. So I stayed there with him for a couple of days. And I said to Ski, Ski, can I borrow your car? I want to go back to the hospital, see how those people were. And of course, there was one of those gals I had my eye on, this nice blonde-haired girl. So I picked all those people up and took them all back to New Jersey, and I took this one girl home last, and I brought her to her home there. My father says, oh, you're the guy that tried to kill my daughter in a car accident. And I said, well, it just happened. So he says, well, you don't want to hang around here and look at us. He says, here, take these keys and take a car and go somewhere. So I used her father's car, and we drove up to West Point. And we walked around West Point, and we got to a place called Inspiration Point. That's where I inspired her. Anyway, we got engaged, and Ski was my best man. And then we went on the honeymoon. Where they go right back to camp with you in North Carolina on my honeymoon. And well, I had been out of the service. And I never did nothing with the VA for years and years and years. Finally, Ski got a hold of me one night because he was in this hospital system for a long time. And he said, why don't you go down there, Red, and put your claim in? So I said, well, I don't know, Mike. I said, this guy's worse off than me. This guy's down there, they can't walk, they got no legs, you know. I still got my body yet. No, come on down there. So I had gone down, and I didn't know about this post-traumatic stress. I thought it was a cop-out. I don't have it. Well, come to find out through Dr. Nozick and Elizabeth, that I was a classic case for it. There were times at nighttime that I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd have the wife by the neck. And one time I took her and put her right through the sheetrock wall in the middle of the night. And I just back to bed. And Jenny, bless her soul, all she says, go to sleep, you're all right. Nothing bothered her. She knew what I was going through. The longest time when I come home, I could not wear a blanket at nighttime. I had to lay on top of the sheets. Because I had this feeling that I had to get up and I had to go. That's all because one night I got caught in my sleeping bag. I couldn't get the zipper down. I had to cut it with my knife to get out of it. So I could never wear a blanket for long. Now I can wear blankets now, but dealing with Elizabeth and Dr. Nozick, you know, I've been coming down here well, I never came here for 35 years, and then I've become quite regular since then. And as time progressed on, they awarded me 100%. And that's been a real blessing. I get all my physicals, I get all my prescriptions, and all my doctors. I had 2 operations here. And I just had all my teeth taken out that was left. They were all broken stumps, you know, at the top of it. I only got 1 tooth back here. That was from when I got hit on the tank. But, I remember that corpsman telling me to go down to the VA. You got it made. Sure enough, I wound up, thanks to Mr. Bill Gibney from the DAB, he did all the paperwork for me. I originally got 50%. Then I developed a cancer on my ear, and it was related back to being frozen. All the tissue was gone in my ears. I had one on the face here and here, and that brought me up to 100% with so much of PTSD and so much for the wounds. Combination. It came out to 130. They pay on 100. So I go get that check every month. That's $2,700 a month tax-free. And that's basically what we live on right now. I mean, between 2 or 3 pensions I put together, I retired with about $5,100 a month. But my VA check is tax-free. That allows us to do what we can do. And I come down here every Thursday for the group. Going back a few years, I was always haunted by Bob Devans, that we never did know if he got picked up. And I would call some of my buddies up and ask them whatever happened to Bob. Well, we laid him on the edge of the road. A buddy of mine called me up and he says, hey, I know how to find out Devans. He was good on the computer. So he found out some Devanses in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, where Bob came from. And he gave me 5 names. The third one I called turned out to be his brother. And I told him the situation. And I said, is Bob home? And he says, Bob's body was found in 1956 in UDMD with his dog tag still on it. The Marine Corps never found him. Otherwise, they would have taken the dog tag. And come to find out, he was still was what left of the sleeping bag. His body was. They brought him back to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and buried him. So I called up my buddies and I said, hey, I know where Devans is buried. So after 40-some years, I made arrangements to go out to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and I told my buddies, I says, I'm going to be in the Comfort Inn in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, right off the highway, and I'm going to meet the brother and the family, and we're going out to the cemetery. If you guys want to make it. Well, Bobby Klug drove in from Chicago, Another guy came in from New Hampshire. One guy came from Jersey. Another guy came from North Dakota. And they all pulled in there. I got there at 12 o'clock, and quarter after 12, a car coming in, 12:30. Anyway, the rest of the squad all showed up that day. That was amazing. We went out to the cemetery. We saw Bob's gravesite. And, none of us prepared anything to say, but we all had something to say, and we couldn't finish it. And everybody just broke down. And Bobby was home. We found where he was. And we in the Chosin Pew have a little metal plaque that we put on the gravestone. Remember the Chosin Pew in North Korea. So we bought the plaque with epoxy and we put it on Bobby's grave. That gave me a lot of closure that we found him. And family invited us to the house. And as we got in the car, I said to the guys, look, let's not get into what happened to Bob. I said, let's just let it lay there. But they wanted to know all the details. So naturally it came out, and there was a lot of hugging, a lot of crying, a lot of kissing. And they served us a great big meal. And the entire family was there. His sister, his mother had died a year before we had gotten down there. So we had that together at the house there. I still hear from the Ostroms and the Devanses every year through Christmas cards and whatnot. And someday I'd like to go back again and visit the cemetery. But we all said something nice about Bob, but none of us could finish it. We just had to pass it on to the next guy. Nothing was written down, it just happened automatically. And my buddy from Buffalo there, Jack Danaher, he was quite taken back about the fact that we found Bob. So we didn't want to talk about what happened, just that we all know him. We all told stories about Liberty with him and how good he was. He was a perfect Marine. He'd make a good posted Marine for the Marine Corps. He was squared away. And finally the parents says, you know, we know Bob was shot in the back of the head because they had the autopsy when they brought him back to the States. And we knew that. They wanted to know how it happened. So we told them that Bob had gone out further to make sure everybody came back to the ditch. And instead of diving into the ditch, he jumped in and the body was exposed and he got at the head. And so we all shared stories about Bob and how he left him behind and how it bothered a lot of us. And it bothered me for almost 40 years. You know, I had nightmares about it. And I was dealing with Dr. Nozick and Elizabeth and another young intern that was here. She's gone on now, but it took me a long time to get over the fact that we finally brought Bob home. And they showed us a letter that they got from our company commander telling them about our actions that night, how if we hadn't held that corner, the Chinese would have come down through the roadblock. And I've always wanted to try to get a citation for Bob, and I'm not much of a letter writer, but I would just like to write to headquarters of the Marine Corps and tell them the situation, see if you can get a citation for Bob. So that's what's on my mind right now. The family treated us real good. We had a great time. We spent the day there. We met everybody in the family. And Jack Danaher told how when he got to Bob and he took out his little serviceman's testament, he prayed over Bob. And we told the family that they were a Christian family. They knew their boy went to heaven. That's just about the way it ended up. And I came home and went back to the farm. And I farmed there for a few years. And I married Jenny. And then I got different jobs. worked for the Borden Company for 18 years, delivering milk, the wholesale milk, different hospitals and institutions. And then I got retired from Borden's, and I got a job with Agway, and then I picked up another 10-year pension from Agway. I retired, and then I wound up in a bus garage, driving buses for school kids. Spent 15 years there, and I had the greatest time of my life trucking those kids around. I had those kids so long that this last 2 years, some of my kindergartens started graduating. And I would get invited to the graduations, and birthday parties, and you know, it was just, I got so wrapped up with those kids. I had a great time. One of the things I used to do is every last day of school, I would take the elementary kids ice cream, soft ice cream. I had about 15 on the bus, and I would take them down. You all got soft ice cream. We got back on the bus and we brought them home. And last year, the kids were all talking about, oh my God, my ice cream today. John always stops for ice cream. So all of a sudden, I see all these other kids getting on with passes, going to different kids' houses. I said, where you guys going? Well, I'm going to Johnny's house. I'm going to Jim's house or Gloria's house. But I come to find out, my regular kids invited all these guys to get on the bus so they could go buy ice cream. It cost me $52 for ice cream. But I enjoyed my kids, and I just like things like that. So
I have a question to ask you. You mentioned that you survived back there in Korea on the Tootsie Rolls.
that's right.
What kind of meals do they supply you with?
Normally we would get sea rations with a can of maybe ham and lima beans with a biscuit in it and a packet that made coffee, but you could never make any coffee because you couldn't have a fire. So basically we survived. I had a can, an empty can with, I didn't eat the biscuit yet. And I would chew on that. That'd be one day, that'd be another day. And then we got the Tootsie Rolls flown into us, and we had pockets full of Tootsie Rolls. And that's what we survived on, Tootsie Rolls.
Were there ever any occasions that you had a good warm meal?
Not till we got back to the harbor in Hongnan. And then we got a hot meal on board ship.
How were you? I assume you had Christmas holidays, Thanksgiving, that you were out in the combat.
Thanksgiving, the air dropped us turkey dinners, these big canisters, and every third guy on the line would go up to the mountaintop and get a turkey dinner. But it was so cold, time you got it, everything was frozen. It froze instantly. You know, you got a hot meal by the time you sat down to eat it. And I always remember I didn't have any mess gear. And I took off my helmet and I held it out, and the guy says, you can't put it in there. I said, yeah, just keep the gravy off to the side there. And I ate my turkey dinner with my hands in the helmet. But yeah, that's just about the way it was. Yeah.
Were there any occasions that there was a lull and you had USO entertainers or so?
Not till the springtime. Marilyn Monroe came over there and put on a show. This was in the springtime. I knew I was a short timer, so I told my guys, my number came up to go down and see the show. I said, nah, you guys go, I'm going to get out of here in another month or two. And that was a big mistake because after we left there, we got into another real big mess on the 31st of May. And then I got wounded again. And time just kept flying by.
How did you get home? Did they supply you with money to go home, or did you have to do it on your own?
I coming home. I just remember being on board a ship and coming back to San Diego, and then I got quarantined in the hospital. I don't remember how. I know I was on board ship, but I don't remember the ship. And then when it come time to get discharged, because we had a pay records, we got paid, you know. And then we came home.
You mentioned that. They told you when you got back that you were AWOL.
Yeah.
How did they treat you in the brig?
Well, they just locked us up and just, you know, they fed us and everything, but they just, till they got the paperwork, we all had our records stamped that we had no air, no air, no air. And finally got to the right captain there, and he said, get these guys out of here, they got to get discharged. So that's the way that worked out. Yeah.
What about, did they give you any change of clothing, when you came back?
Oh yeah, as soon as we got back on board ship, they made us take all our clothes off, and they burned all our clothes because we were filthy with snot running down your face. And when you had to defecate, you couldn't do it. Just did it. We stunk, and we were terrible. You couldn't get the zipper down to get your fly open, so 40 below zero, you just did that. And these doctors that examined us, they said we were animals. But we made it. And, I think that's about much I can tell you.
So have you been active in any military organizations?
Yeah, I belong to the Marine Corps League over in Pittsfield, and we march in the 4th of July parade every year. I still have my uniform, and I had to get it altered a little bit, but I still wear it. And I wear it with a lot of pride.
Have you participated in any reunions?
Yes, I go every 2 years to the Chosin reunion. That's what we call ourselves, the Chosin Few, because there wasn't that many that came out of the reservoir. And we see people we know there, and we still have a good time. And my wife always goes, and my grandson goes with us. He's been to every Chosin Few. Now he's in the Navy, he's on a submarine right now. But we have a good time with the reunions. And last reunion, 8th and 9th Marine Corps headquarters held a special presentation for us with the Marine Corps band, and we had center stage, and they honored us. It was quite a ceremony. But, we call ourselves the Chosin Few, and we meet every 2 months in the American Legion here in Albany. In fact, tomorrow there's a meeting, but I can't go to it. I got something to do tomorrow. But we stick together. We tell stories and lie to each other. That's about the whole picture there.
The Marine Corps is known for its tradition of camaraderie.
Oh yes, yes.
And always making sure that they take care of their wounded.
Yes.
And bringing
we brought all our dead and the wounded back. And there was one grave in Coterie that the dozers dug out of the ground. It was a mass grave because we had so many dead. They had to bury them in Coterie. But basically, we brought all our dead out with us and our equipment.
Well, thank you very much for your story and for your serving of our country.
Thank you.
Thank you.